It's going to be a football game tonight now. No doubt. It's going to be a football game here. Okay. I done been here before. All right, let's go, baby.
Play clock at 5. Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler. Unreal.
And the Ohio State Buckeyes are the first national champions of the playoff era.
Ladies and gentlemen, football to football.
Your host, Sean Garmer, Gary Vaughn, and Randy Isbell.
Hello and welcome to another Football to Football as we are closing in on it. We are officially halfway through this season as we are doing an NFL Week 9 recap here tonight and also talking a little bit about that Chargers and Bears thriller to the end again, as it has been the case for the Chargers for many weeks now. And we'll also be talking about some of the big games in college football Week 10, some big upsets that already happened and have shaken those playoff rankings. And we'll end it with our Player of the Week, the top 5 power rankings. And even though he's not here tonight, Gary does have his fantasy football pickups for Week 10. Gary unfortunately had his daughter has a high fever, apparently has a viral infection even. You know, apparently it's nothing too serious. Doc wasn't concerned, is what he says. So, hopefully he will be back on Thursday, and all things will be well. But it'll just be myself, the host of this podcast, Mr. Sean Garmer, and with me, thankfully, because it would suck so bad to do this by myself, Mr. Randy Isbell.
Yeah, you can definitely tell that Gary's kid is a Cowboys fan. She is getting sick along with all of you.
Yeah, along with all of us. It's just I got the sniffles too. No idea if Gary, maybe Gary's a little bit on the not well side too. You never know. Sad thing with those viral infections too is they can pass them on to people. So hopefully it doesn't pass on to Gary. I don't want to get a message that Gary's just out of it himself. But yeah, so we do need to start with the game that ended a lot earlier than the other games on Sunday. Did you watch any of this? I know you're at work, so you don't always get to watch everything, but...
Yeah, I get to watch about the last quarter and a half, like, actually paying attention. The first half, it's kind of how work goes. I was able to watch bits and pieces of the first half.
Well, what did you think? I mean, it looked like just another one of these games where the Chargers were close the whole time. Some key drops from people at the end. You had Stevie Johnson being stupid and spiking the ball, which cost him 5 yards. Then Rivers throws a touchdown to Gates, but it's called back due to an ineligible man downfield. And again, they go back and just can't do it on that drive, and they have to kick the field goal. Just not in the cards again for the Chargers. They lose by 3 points. 22-19. Jay Cutler had a pretty terrific game. All things being considered, 345 yards, 2 touchdowns. He breaks Sid Luckman's record, and he is now the all-time leader for the Chicago Bears in touchdown passes with that 1 yard to Martellus Bennett. Alshon Jeffrey has another great game. When Denny Woodhead is not only your leading rusher with 33 yards, he's also your leading receiver. Tells you a lot of what you need to know about the Chargers. They lose Malcolm Floyd for who knows how long, too. My God, he loses Allen last week, now loses Floyd. Just the walking wounded for the Chargers, Randy. Just
Yeah, listen, the luck is just not there for the Chargers by any means. You know, you said some of the mistakes that they made late in the game. Both were kind of, well, I would say that the Stevie Johnson move was boneheaded. The ineligible man downfield was just kind of one of those things. The play breaks down. Rivers rolls out, possibly might run, so a lineman kind of tries to run out to block somebody, and then Rivers decides to throw it. So there's the flag there. Just one of those things that kind of happens. But to me, this game kind of turned around when Jason Verrett goes down with an injury. He was doing a decent job slowing down Alshon Jeffrey. He also
68-yard interception.
Yep, absolutely. Also with the pick six, and then gets hurt on his very next defensive play. But the moment he goes out, you could just see Jay Cutler's eyes light up. It was Alshon Jeffrey the whole rest of the game, just completely torching it. And I think it was near the end of the third quarter when I actually started getting to watch it, maybe early fourth, and Jay Gruden, who's one of my favorite guys on TV. I know we do some of the Ravel stuff, but as far as like real TV guys, he's one of my favorites. But he broke down a section really great where basically Chicago has a play where it's going to be a run play, but if Jay Cutler doesn't like how it's looking in the box, they have a quick wide receiver screen ready to go. And I watched them do that 2 or 3 times in that drive, and San Diego had no answer for it. And when you have a receiver as big as Alshon Jeffrey, it's tough to really have an answer for that. Also,
he would bowl him over too.
Yeah, and Jeremy Langford looks great. I mean, he may not be needed much because Forte may come back in the next week or two, but really, I mean, if you're going to have a backup like that, I mean, you're definitely okay with it. It allows Forte to really get healthy because at this point, you're not really thinking playoffs unless you can go on a run. But Langford looks strong. I mean, he got to the hole hard and had a little burst to him, so I like the way he looked, unlike Melvin Gordon. Yeah.
He's still not looking good. Carey looks pretty good still, though.
Yeah, Carey looked good, too.
And Zach Miller, what a catch. One-headed grab for that touchdown. Got to give him credit for that because we hadn't heard from him at all in the game. He shows up for the one play you need him, and he makes a big grab. For one, I mean, it was 13-0 for a while for San Diego, missing the extra point. But after the interception return by Verrett, I mean, Cutler was doing his thing. The pick six, the fumble. You thought it was one of those games again where Cutler was going to lose it for him, and he comes up big later, but just a series of just really unfortunate. You're up 16-7 going into that fourth quarter. You should expect to do much better, and it's just like you said, the luck is not.
Yeah, I think a lot of that, again, it's the injury to the cornerback, and then Alshon Jeffrey can just run wild on you. And also, yes, it was 13-0 at one point, but it really didn't feel like 13-0. I mean, the Bears miss a field goal, and then they fumble it after 2 really long drives, and that third quarter happens, and basically they have the ball forever. They go on an 8-minute drive and then a 4-minute drive after that, and the defense just looked tired, and you can just kind of tell that they started wearing them out a little bit. And listen, even though they were down on the scoreboard for a lot of the game, I thought Chicago was the better team, especially after the 2 big injuries for San Diego.
Yeah, the Malcolm Floyd injury is huge because they can no longer go deep down the field anymore.
Yeah, and that happened early. I mean, he gets his first target, he comes down bad on his arm, and it just... Hopefully he's okay because they can't lose anyone else.
Seriously. Stevie Johnson's fine. I mean, he's a good guy, and you still have Gates, but you don't have Ladarius Green, who's another guy that Rivers looks for. I mean, he was literally just willing this team on by himself again, and almost did it again. It's just, God, I feel so bad for Phillip Rivers, but
yeah.
It's just one of these things where they can't get it done. I mean, and, talking about Chicago here, you mentioned them going on a run. Look, with what happened with Minnesota winning, Green Bay losing, there's now a tie for first in the NFC North. Chicago's 3-5. They have all 3 of their division teams. They have a game remaining with those. I mean, they did lose already to all 3 of them now. So, I mean, that's big, but they can at least split those if they have the chance. But they have the Rams, who is a team that's in the same ballpark as you. You should feel that you can beat that. You got the Broncos, right before Thanksgiving. Then you got to play the Packers on Thanksgiving in Lambeau. That's huge. But that's also a division game, and, we saw the first week game was a lot closer. And then you have a nice schedule here. It's quite possible. Let's say, we don't know where the Broncos are going to be in a couple weeks. So that game, I don't think you can throw that game entirely out. It's also Cutler against his old team in the Broncos, so there might be something there to that. But, you got San Francisco, you got Washington, you got the Vikings again, you got the Lions at the end of the season, you got the Buccaneers. I mean, you got some games you can win. Do you think that they could possibly go on a run here? I mean, obviously it depends on what the rest of the division does, but just controlling their own destiny at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely need to go on a run. I think you need to win 2 of these next 3 games, which is really tough. Yes, the Rams are kind of in that same situation, but listen, it is at St. Louis, and I said, in our pre-show that St. Louis is a whole different monster at home, and, I mean, they stuck right in it with Minnesota. We'll get into that game in a little bit, but I can see them maybe stealing one of these, but to go 2 out of 3 with going to St. Louis and Green Bay and then, hosting Denver, it's just going to be difficult. So, I mean, and the way the whole NFC is kind of looking, getting a wild card is also going to be pretty tough.
Right. It is. It's a rough one to ask, but, they have, honestly, the same thing we were saying for the Chargers. When Cutler's been playing, they've kept these games close. I mean, they beat the Raiders by 2. They beat the Chiefs by 1 in that ridiculous game. They lost to the Lions by 3, lost to the Vikings by 3, just beat the Chargers by 3. I mean, so they're one of these teams that, you can't, when he's been in there, you don't blow them out. So they definitely have a shot in every game. And that's what I'm saying. They've already seen some of these go their way that really shouldn't have. So, all it takes is one of those freak things that happens, and it goes your way, you get an extra possession, and you make a touchdown, make a field goal that you need, and you would expect Robbie Gould not to miss 2 field goals. Again, he's been one of the most accurate kickers in the league ever since he's been in there. So, but, I agree with you. This is going to be a hard road for him, but it's definitely something you can get done. I think if they just take it one game at a time and see what happens. We'll have to see when we get to next week on Sunday at 1 o'clock when they play the Rams. But for the Chargers, is there anything you can really take from what's left of the season? You're now 2-7. I mean, everybody else in that division except for the Broncos is kind of, mediocre as it is, but...
I wouldn't say that. We'll get to
I'm
that.
just saying, the Raiders have had opportunities to win games that they've lost. Also on the other side of the foot, too, but, Chiefs are what they can be. We've seen them look good, and we've also seen them look bad. So,
but no, I mean, as far as what they can take away from this, it's just experience. Obviously, this season has not gone the way they've wanted it to. I thought it was going to be a down year, but I thought it was going to be because of all the distractions. It's kind of turned out it was a lot of injuries. It was a lot of, Melvin Gordon hasn't really turned out that great. But I think he can improve. I mean, now is the time where you start messing around with your system. It's the time that you start experimenting with things. It's the time where you start experimenting with players. This is your time to go, okay, let's see what works. Let's see what gems that we have hiding. Let's mess around some things, and let's see if we can then turn it around next year when we're healthier. And because listen, if this team is 100% healthy and get going, you should have 2 really good running backs, especially with Danny Woodhead, who can come out of the backfield. You have 2 amazing tight ends. You have Keenan Allen and Malcolm Floyd that can spread the field, and Stevie Johnson's a great number 3. So your offense should just be putting up a ton of points when healthy. So if they can start figuring out how to close games, finding that magic that they just have not had this year and use it next year. I mean, they could definitely turn it around next year. But I mean, that's all you can do now is try to figure out different things for next year.
If you're Phillip Rivers, are you thinking at all about what if I didn't re-sign? Or,
Well, it's not as much as the re-signing thing because it's a fluke year. I mean, it's a ton of injuries. you don't have Antonio Gates the first 4 weeks, and then once he comes back, you lose the Travis Green, and it just gets worse and worse. And now Keenan Allen and Malcolm Floyd, and it's one of those. It's such a fluky thing. I don't think he looks back at it and regrets it.
Right. I mean, it is hard. You can't account for injuries when you start the season. Everybody starts at the same level, obviously, unless you have an injury that's been keeping you out from previous. But when you started out, you're not sitting there going, "Oh, I'm going to lose this guy. I'm going to lose that guy." It happens. You have to deal with it. But when it's just so many of them at once, it's just so hard. It doesn't matter how great you are. It's too difficult at times to really be able to just go, "Okay, well, we're going to get through this."
And you know what? If they were in the AFC South, they'd only be 2 games out of the division lead. So.
Yeah, exactly. That's what happens when you have a Denver team that's been going crazy. But I'm going to go ahead and get this out of the way because Gary's not here, so we can't have our Cowboys minute that we do at the end of the podcast because we're both there and both Cowboys fans or whatever. Yeah. I'm just going to go ahead and knock this out. Well, I mean, you did watch. You were, well, I don't know if you got to. I knew we were doing the Rabble, so I don't know if you kind of decided I got other games to watch. I know these guys kind of took care of it, but did you watch the game at all, or? Wait,
the Eagles-Cowboys game?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's during while I'm in a bowling league, but it's based around the NFL, so we have all the TVs are on the game. We're all talking about our fantasy leagues, and we have a bunch of, one of my good friends is an Eagles fan, and one of the ladies we were bowling with was a Cowboys fan. So, yes, I watched a lot of this game, and oh, boy, do I want to hear what you guys have, especially what you have to say. There were many points that I was like, I wish I could listen to Rabble right now.
Yeah, we were, it was hard because, we try to be impartial, and it's difficult because there's times where, I want to just yell at the screen, and I can't do it because I'm not just watching it as a fan, so, but it's just one of these times where Matt Castle was not the guy to blame. I know he had the pick 6, but they came back. Lucky Whitehead got the kick return, or punt return, I think it was a kick return, and then, they got the ridiculous touchdown that Des Bryant caught that, he just pretty much threw up there. And that's what you pay Dez all those millions of dollars to do, as Gary pointed out on the Rabble. But
yeah, I wanna go back and hear what you guys said during that. But on my way to work, they were playing one of I think it was the Cowboys radio station for that play, and it was one of my favorite calls of all year, where he's like, and Castle rolls out and he threw it away. Oh, Dez caught it. He just threw it away. It was just one of those weird plays. I even joked with somebody, at the bowling alley. It was it's a little early for a Hail Mary, don't you think?
Yeah.
But that's what it looked like. It looked like an end of the half or end of the game Hail Mary that just...
Oh, it did. I was sitting there. I'm like, well, he turns around and he's just going to throw it away. And then, oh my God, Dez caught the ball. It was one of those, and at first I thought, because what I saw was Dez goes, I didn't see him completely go down, and then I saw the ball kind of squirt out, and the Eagles guy kind of go after it, so I'm like, oh crap, did he just, bumble it at the end? And no, they were saying touchdown, so, that was miraculous, and, Cole Beasley showed up again. They made plays for him. They designed plays around him, and Castle got him the ball, and McFadden ran for 127 yards. Castle was a yard away from getting 300 yards. I mean, Bradford played really well too, but I think the key to the game is the moment Rolando McClain basically took out Sean Lee, and the Cowboys got one stop after Sean Lee was taken out of the game. He is their captain on defense. He calls all the plays. He's just like Romo in the way that he sets the rest of the defense. He's not just there calling the play and then, okay, everybody knows what you're supposed to do. He's telling guys, watch out for this guy, watch out for that guy. He's doing what, your big linebacker is supposed to do. And McClain just hasn't looked like himself. You'd think that he was going to step in and do that's what he did last year. But this year, that suspension didn't do him any favors at all. And I felt so bad for Greg Hardy at times. He was so close so many times to get into Bradford, and he just didn't get there. The Eagles' offense finally looked like themselves. They had the Cowboys gassed to the point where they had to call a timeout, which was ridiculous. but that's how that offense works when it's on point, and they ran the ball better. Obviously, again, it helps when you're missing guys. Hitchens going out too was big. But the Cowboys just, again, to me it comes down to, look, this is a complete opposite to the game last week. Last week you're saying the offense used to make a play. They couldn't make a play. Defense was holding 13 points, exactly what you needed to do. This week, defense does not make the play that you need them to make. And the offense is there for you. And, credit to the Eagles. They did everything they're supposed to do. Wilcox had a terrible angle on that touchdown that Matthews got in overtime. But it's just, I don't know. Even if they beat the Bucs, this is going to be an almost impossible task for Romo. I mean, other than everybody in that division collapsing, which is still quite possible. I mean, both the Eagles and Giants still have to play the Patriots. I mean, they got the easier of the. I mean, the Giants still have to play the Vikings. I mean, but the Eagles got the easier road of the three, and I just don't see. I see the Eagles kind of going more forward than backwards at this point. Yeah, it could be a fact that you're playing the Cowboys, and they kind of played each other. Even they were five. They've been 5-5 this decade at Dallas. So the Eagles now hold the win right there at 6-5. It's just. I am speechless as to what to really think about this team. I know everybody's racking their brain at this point as far as what to do. They're so close yet again. I just don't. I'm starting to wonder if it's just a bad team, and just or maybe Romo just hides that many deficiencies from the team. I just don't know.
Listen, I mean, you just have to look at it this way. You guys are the NFC version of the San Diego Chargers. It's just, injuries have definitely hampered everything that you've wanted to do. Obviously, we need to slow down on the Romo hate anymore because, he goes out and the entire team falls apart. You guys, Sean Lee, you're exactly right. He is the brain of the defense. I mean, you lose guys like this, and you can't expect to win. You lose Des Bryant for so long. It's like you just lose so many key players. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, how would Green Bay look if Aaron Rodgers was out for a significant amount of time? I mean, they may win a game here and there because they have better players, but I mean,
can anybody even name the backup for the Patriots right now? I mean, it's just
is it still Garoppolo?
But still, it's just. I mean, just anybody. Like, think about if your all-star quarterback goes out. Like, Cam Newton went out for the Panthers. They're done. Like,
yeah, absolutely. And that's just the way it is. And there's, as he's not. I mean, Tony Romo's not the only injury, and that's just kind of the way it's been. And obviously, it's the next man up kind of scenario, and you still have to win these games. So you can't just go, oh well, we would be. 6-2 if we just had Romo back. You still got to figure out how to win these games, and you have to be happy that Darren McFadden is starting to look better, and that with Des Bryant, Cole Beasley is able to get back into it, and there are improvements. You played a very talented team in the Eagles, who were coming off of bye, who are starting to get their offense rolling, which they showed. Sunday night that they are starting to figure things out, and you brought them into overtime, and they won the coin toss, and they drove down the field and got the win. I mean, it's just one of those things, and yeah, the season might be just about over at 2-6, but I mean, I don't think you can look at it and go, well, it might just be a bad team. It's a really good team that has gotten a ton of bad breaks and just has not figured out how to overcome it.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles do still have to play the Patriots. They get the Bills at home, and they get the Cardinals at home. So they got lucky in that situation straight through. And they also got the Redskins at home, 3 straight at home to end the season before they play the Giants in the last game. I mean, they got a nice little row of games that they should be able to win in the Dolphins, Bucks, and Lions all together.
Yep.
Cowboys had that same row right there with the Dolphins and Bucks, but.
I do, before we move on, want to just say that I never wish to have you say I feel bad for Greg Hardy again, though. Please.
Oh, well. I didn't mean it in that sense.
I understand. My brain shut off, though, after you said it.
Yeah, it just... Whatever. I felt bad for the whole. Yeah, I mean, DeMarcus Lawrence was out too during parts of that game. Was just a guy that you're asking to run on the other side, and I don't know where Tyron Crawford apparently has an injury. Just a lot of these guys apparently are banged up all of a sudden. Just for me, if you can get the Bucks win, this is what's sad. Like, I wonder what would happen if Castle had played the entire time instead of just Whedon, because it seems like Castle's just now grasping the offense right when he's got one more game and then Romo's going to come in. So I just really hope that they win this one game with the Buccaneers so they can get this feeling off of them that, oh my God, we can't win without Romo. And that can be very demoralizing as, like, psychologically. Like, our team couldn't win one game without Romo. Like, how much does that say? So the thing is, for Romo, he's got the Dolphins, and then he's got to turn around 4 days later and play Carolina Thanksgiving. So that's a huge ask for that guy. But either way, let's move on from this game and get to the games that happened earlier in the day. I think we'll wait for the Broncos and Colts game at the end, but big game of the week here, and it certainly delivered as far as entertaining from both points of view. Rodgers was running for his life much of this game. They couldn't block for him. They were up 30. The Panthers were up 37-14 at one point. Just amazing. That's not what we were thinking, right? When we were thinking this game and game of the week, like 37-14 Panthers at that point. I mean, I know that it's away from Lambeau, but my goodness.
Yeah, I think Carolina definitely came out and showed that they are legit. I know we all kind of wrote them off when Kelvin Benjamin got hurt, and we still kind of, me especially, as the season has started, going, yeah, they're 4-0, but they haven't really played anybody, and oh yeah, they're still undefeated, but they're going to fall off. They don't have a lot of talent other than Cam Newton. But listen, all right, look at their last 4 games. They have went to Seattle and beat them. They have beaten Philadelphia. They have beaten Indianapolis, and they have beaten Green Bay. I mean, I don't know what else we need to say about this team and not believe them.
And
yes,
that's with Indianapolis, Philadelphia, and Green Bay all sort of being in it at the end, and they were able to close.
Yeah, and listen, Green Bay shouldn't have been back in this. Carolina kind of took their foot off the gas and let Green Bay. I'm not going to say they let Green Bay start scoring. That's a terrible way to put it, but it kind of took their foot off the gas, and Green Bay took advantage, and they started to get rolling a little bit, and the next thing you know, they're starting to get back into it. I don't know what possessed Carolina to decide to throw the ball with like 3 minutes to go, where Cam Newton then throws an interception.
That terrible interception.
I don't understand the play call. I don't understand that decision making. Maybe it was a little bit of jitters because it was like, oh my God, now Green Bay is only 8 points back. And it really happened so fast that I don't know if they're shell shocked or whatever, but he throws an interception and then Green Bay has a great chance. And, they finally get Aaron Rodgers to throw an interception under pressure just right at the end of the game. And that was that. But for the first 3 quarters, this was all Carolina all the time. They completely dominated. And the fact is, even though Cam Newton still only really has Greg Olsen that you would look at as far as, a great receiver, he's turned Devin Funchess into a household name. He's been playing phenomenal. He gets 3 catches. Jericho Cotchery, who played for the Jets 30 years ago, it seems like, he goes out, has 3 catches for 82 yards. This Corey Brown kid that no one knew goes out and scores a touchdown, looks great. And still, Ted Ginn Jr. is alive and doing stuff, which makes no sense. So, he's surrounded by guys named Fuzzy Whitaker and the 90-year-old Mike Tolbert and the 900-pound Jonathan Stewart, and he's making this offense what it is. Yes, he only throws for 50%, but Cam is doing things that are just so impressive and just amazing, where he is going up against some of the best talent in the league, and he is coming out on top. So I bow down. I give in. I am finally going, okay, Carolina, I get it. You not only are you a good team, you're a great team. And you're going to win the NFC South, and I apologize for doubting you for the first 8 games.
And they got more nice games coming down the stretch. They got the Titans. It's in Tennessee, and it's Mariota. This is going to be fun, Mariota against Cam Newton next week. And then they got the Redskins. They got the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. That's going to be interesting with Romo back. Saints, let's see what Drew Brees what his state is in. Falcons, Giants, Falcons again, and then they end the season with the Buccaneers. I mean, so again, we could see them be 10-0 walking into Dallas for Thanksgiving, and then get out of that game, and then you got some divisional games which are going to be rough, and who knows? This could be insane. You think that they could go along with the Patriots and be 16-0, or?
No,
knock them off here.
I mean, at Dallas is always interesting. The game that really jumps out to me is at New Orleans. I think that will be their first stumbling block if they haven't fallen before then. They're doing their best to go. It's way too early to talk about undefeated seasons and stuff, which it is. I mean, they're only halfway there. But it will start creeping into your head a little bit as things get going. I mean, that's just human nature. So a slip up is possible. You also have the teams on the other side going, "Oh, we could be that team. Let's be that spoiler." But
and that Titans game is in Tennessee. It's a trap game, I think. Certainly.
Absolutely, and if Mariota continues to be Mr. Luck-Sack that he is, which we'll get to in that game when we talk about them in New Orleans, anything's possible.
Yeah, for sure, and I think, honestly, a lot of people are wondering this. That's not necessarily, our question for this team, but what the hell is wrong with Eddie Lacy?
I was talking to my girlfriend who is a Green Bay Packers fan, and she was talking about her and a friend of hers were having a discussion, and this discussion was kind of about how it seemed like there were a few that the Packers were taking a step back, and I just joked with her. I was like, well, except for Eddie Lacy, because he refuses to take any steps. He just doesn't look. I mean, I was as a fantasy owner, I drafted him in the first round last year and got sick and tired of him after 4 or 5 weeks because he started out slow. And then after I traded him off, that's when he started picking it up. Not the week after I traded him, but I have learned that it's slow to start for the first few weeks. So I was still going, okay. But now there's talks of maybe a groin injury and all of this. So it's just bad news for Eddie Lacy, who just everyone has said has not looked right, has looked out of shape, and now is injured. But Green Bay fans, get off the ledge. Listen, it was at Denver, at Carolina, 2 very tough teams. Your team is going to be fine. You get the Lions next week to correct everything before your huge game at Minnesota. So just calm down. It's not like the ship is sinking or anything. You just played 2 really tough teams, and you came out on the losing end. It's if you're going to lose now and beat them in the playoffs, but. I don't think it's anything for any alarm bells to start going off.
No, but you do have the issue of the fact that you are no longer just leading that division by yourself. You're tied, and the Vikings keep winning games that it seems like they really shouldn't, or they just keep finding ways to win. The Cowboys just keep finding ways to lose, seemingly. Vikings just keep finding ways to win, and that's what you need to do, even without Teddy Bridgewater for a major part of that game. They did what they're supposed to do. And let's get on to that because it relates to the Packers.
Here, hold on. Before you go there, I just want to bring it up just because I find the story completely hilarious.
Oh, yeah, we need to talk about this. I forgot.
And the only reason I bring it up is again, a conversation with my girlfriend where it turned into a joking argument. We weren't yelling at each other. But she thinks Cam Newton is a bastard for ripping down the Packers
of course she does.
sign
She's a Packers fan.
in Carolina. Basically, the story, if you've not heard it, idiot brings... Sorry, I shouldn't say an idiot. I need to be a responsible journalist.
No, it is an idiot.
But a guy brings in a banner that he says was worth $500. It's basically a sign that has the North Carolina outline on it with a Green Bay logo saying Packer Nation or some idiot thing like that. Cam Newton sees it during warm-ups, runs over, rips it out of their hands, runs into the locker room, throws it away. He is now talking about suing Cam Newton and da-da-da. Carolina says their policy is to replace the sign, which they said they will. The guy doesn't seem interested in that. Listen, Cam Newton's a hero in this situation. And I think, Sean...
And also, listen, why the hell are you paying $500 for a sign?
Yeah, the $500 thing just makes me laugh. But, Sean, I think you're going to agree with me on this because you are also a wrestling fan. It's the heel move to see a sign and rip it up.
Oh, yeah, it is. Not only that.
Now Cam Newton is at home, so he's the good guy here. But to that Packers fan, he's the heel. That's what you do. You bring signs to wrestling shows hoping, praying that you're the lucky one that, like, Seth Rollins will rip up your sign. Or Chris Jericho will rip up your sign. You should go, oh, that was awesome. Cam Newton stole my sign and threw it away. That was so great. I got to interact with an NFL player. It never happens. It's like, listen, I absolutely love what Cam Newton has done, and it's another reason why I'm completely behind the Panthers right now. It's, listen, you don't bring Packer stuff into my house. That's just how it works. It's, listen, I'm a Yankees fan. I'm a Jets fan. If you come in and you put a picture of David Ortiz in my house, it's getting ripped down. That's just how it works. Cam Newton's a hero. He's a hero for what he did. Calling him a bastard. Jeez. But it's a funny story, and I love how... I mean, of course, because, you know, sports media, you have to talk about something. And I'm glad we've moved on from all this, the Grady Cardi pictures, which he deserves zero radio time. Just stop talking about one of the worst human beings on the planet. And let's have some fun with a poster. Postergate. Bannergate. Stupid gates anymore.
Oh, stupid. Stop calling things gate. Seriously, stop calling things gate. This is getting ridiculous.
All right, let's
move. Controversy.
Okay, so fine. Let's move on from Bannergate and let's go to Bountygate 2.
God. Just, whatever. Yeah, I mean, Mike Zimmer was livid after this, and I don't blame him. That hit on Teddy Bridgewater was absolutely dirty. Shouldn't have been done. But again, this is why Greg Williams, people really considered whether or not. I mean, hey, look, Gary talked about this with the Eagles too, and nobody was saying anything about them. And he legit just said, hey, I wanted to hurt him. And I don't know if they ever fined him or not. I don't think they did. But, this is why a lot of people said that Greg Williams shouldn't be able to coach again in the league.
Okay,
and
so
that question will be there, right?
When I watched this game, actually last night, I had the same feelings as you about it was a dirty hit, it was terrible, it's all on Greg Williams. I mean, because that's just the instincts we all have. I have since watched it a few more times and listened to a few other analysts on a few other networks kind of talk about it, and I kind of am swaying in the way I feel about this, and I want to see how you think about it. Was it a terrible hit? Absolutely. He shouldn't have done it. It is a second-year player. He's still getting the ropes. I think he was legitimately trying to get out of the way. It's one of those things where Teddy kind of goes into the slide, and he was getting ready to hit, and it looks kind of like he's trying to turn to get out of the way. But my question is, why turn to the left when obviously that's where he's going to end up? I would have wished he would have turned right. He still would have hit Teddy, but it wouldn't have been in the head. But I think he was just trying to miss him completely. So I've kind of softened on my stance on this. I don't think it was legitimate or it was intentional. I don't think he was headhunting. I just think it was he was going in to get the big hit on the quarterback. And then he goes into the slide, and he tried to avoid and just hit in the wrong spot. So I can understand where people think it is dirty. I honestly, the first time I saw it, 100% thought it was a dirty hit, thought it was terrible, thought he should get suspended because it looks really bad, especially because Teddy lays there for what seems like 2 minutes with his eyes closed and just completely out of it. But I do want to kind of go on defense for this kid, and I don't want to call him a headhunter, and I don't want to call him a bad guy. I just think he he was going for an aggressive play, and then he made a mistake, and I truly think it wasn't intentional. I don't know how you feel.
Jeff Fisher said after the game that Mike Zimmer probably went a little overboard and needs to control his emotions.
Yeah, and to me, that's one of those things where, listen, if you know the guy on the other sideline's a bad dude and has a history of this stuff, the moment anything starts looking like it could be like that, that's just where your mindset goes.
Well, Rodney Harrison said that he saw a game where I think it was when Fisher was with the Titans that they had one of their guys get hurt, one of the Patriots or Chargers or whoever it was at that point, get hurt, and Jeff Fisher was laughing. So, Rodney Harrison didn't have anything nice to say about him either. So
I don't want to say anything about, whether Jeff Fisher was happy Teddy got hurt or if Greg Williams is still a bad dude or anything like that. I'm just going to go on defense for the kid and truly feel like he didn't really do it on purpose.
Yeah, and they know each other, so I really believe him when he says he doesn't want. I think that would have been one of those cases where he says, "I don't care what your thing is, I'm not doing it."
Yeah, it looks bad and definitely is. I hope Teddy is 100% fine and is able to play next week and stuff.
I hope the Vikings are,
because this is an interesting team, and this was a great game to watch, especially if you like defenses. It's two great defenses that completely went at it. They completely battled all day long. I know I've been critical on Nick Foles because he's just struggled, as a St. Louis quarterback, but he got pressured all day. It seemed like every time he went to step into a throw, he had a Viking right there, and it was completely taking him off rhythm. Both Todd Gurley and Adrian Peterson have pretty good days, but nothing completely amazing. Adrian Peterson does basically, after Bridgewater gets hurt, go, okay, let's go. Jump on my back. We're winning this game because Sean Hill's terrible. If Teddy misses any time, the Vikings are in trouble because, oh my God, is he just not a good quarterback? But basically, this game goes into overtime after Greg Zuerlein misses his first attempt to tie the game, gives a second chance, and gets it after hitting a 61-yard field goal outdoors in the wind, which was very impressive, and not in Denver. So that was impressive. But, the Vikings then... I'm so afraid to get games mixed up. This is the game I watched, I'm pretty sure, where... Minnesota wins the toss, and they went with the wind. Instead of receiving the ball in overtime like it's typical, they had the wind with them, and it worked out because the Rams go out, they have to punt. Minnesota gets a great punt return and then just ride Adrian Peterson into field goal range and won the game. So there you go. Minnesota's tied for first. They are not your division leaders, people. I saw a lot of internet outrage that both NFL.com and ESPN, when you go into the if the playoffs started today section or playoff standings, that they have Green Bay as a division leader. I understand Minnesota is 3-0 in their division, and Green Bay is only 1-0. Green Bay is still your division leader because all it matters is percentage. They both have 100% percentage in the division. It doesn't matter that they've won 3-1. So I saw just 900 comments, and 830 of them were Minnesota should be first. It's biased, like they have anything to do with it. The
playoffs don't start today, so that's why
we're only for one, we're only halfway there. For two, you can't have a biased. It's statistical.
Yeah,
but that makes me laugh. But so hopefully Teddy Bridgewater's fine, and Minnesota can get going. On the St. Louis side, it's another interesting team as far as possible playoff runs go, because I really do think, especially when they're at home, they're a very dangerous team. They signed Wes Welker today, which could make things a little interesting, gives them that veteran leadership, maybe that extra wide receiver to go to, because this entire game was Nick Foles under center, hikes the ball, he turns around to Todd Gurley, who's running straight up the middle. He either hands it to him, or he goes to option 2, which was Tavon Austin coming around the outside on, I'm going to blank on a wide receiver sweep, and hands it to him, or he fakes it to both of them and then sits back and looks for Kenny Britt or Lance Kendricks deep. That was their offense 70%
That's been their
of this game.
offense.
But I haven't, I've seen a few Rams games this year. I do not kid you. I think I saw it every other play.
Yeah, as soon as they figured out how to use Tavon Austin, it's become Tavon Austin and Todd Gurley, and that's their entire offense. And then if they can't do that, they'll try to throw it deep. I mean, that's just what the Rams have done. And, Gurley's kind of been able to run them into wins, and that works. But when you face a deep,
I think their setup was still the same. I just think they did the exact same play. It was like that one of those triple option things, but it was the exact. I was like, just kept looking at my thing, going, "Am I watching? Did I hit backwards at some point? Am I back in the second quarter?" It was the same formation, same play, and it's like, so maybe getting Wes Welker in there will allow them to mix it up enough. I understand, the idea is still there, but it's a dangerous team. Their defense is really good.
Yeah, and I mean, they, Aaron Donald's a beast, and I think having Wes Welker is going to be big because now they can throw those intermediate routes, and Welker can be there. You got to hope he doesn't get hurt, because just like Sean Lee, Welker goes down without a concussion. He's not playing the rest of it.
So do you think Welker is a fantasy option?
Welker's a just not immediately, I don't think. I think you got to let him play at least a week, see what happens, how they evolve in the offense, and then you got to go in that. I mean, if you want to pick him up and let's see what happens, you're not doing anything wrong because who the Rams got to throw to besides Tavon Austin? I mean, he's going to be an option there, but you have to see how they use him and if it's going to be effective first, I think. I still don't. I mean, a lot of people do that whole preventative. Somebody gets signed, let's go ahead and get them. And I don't think that's a bad thing. If you go ahead and do that, and let's say in 2 weeks they don't use them, then you decide if you want to drop them or not. If you got the roster space, then do it. Apparently, Jose Reyes has been arrested. He was arrested. I don't know why they're just not reporting this. This was like a couple weeks ago. Well, whatever. It just comes across on my phone, and so they're going, what? That's weird. Anyway, yeah. I would pick up Welker if you had the roster space. But I wouldn't expect him to be immediately game one getting you 100 yards or something.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think, but...
No, I mean, it's one of those interesting stash-aways just in case, he lights things up. But no, I'm with you on the... You're not picking him up to start him.
So let's move along as the Lions were on bye, and we already talked about the Bears, so we're done with talking about the NFC North. Two more NFC West teams were on bye with the Cardinals and Seahawks both being in that spot. As now we're just going to move on to an NFC East team, the Giants, playing Tampa Bay in Tampa Bay. And don't let that last touchdown in the last second fool you. This game was close. It was close throughout the game. It was only a 5-point lead for the Giants at one point before they get the field goal that made it 8. They had actually been able to get it within 2 on Winston's big rushing touchdown that he does. He looked pretty good doing it. He couldn't get the 2-point conversion, and that created separation. There was multiple times where Mike Evans or Doug Martin, if they would have caught these nice passes that they had right in their hands, they could have turned the tide and actually won the game. So I think this is not on Winston at all. This is on the receivers. Running backs, receivers fumbling, bad times. Charles Sims with a bad fumble. Eli Manning had an interception at the first freaking play of the game, and then Tampa Bay can't go and turn it into a touchdown. And that's one thing I forgot to mention with the Cowboys is they took risks in that game knowing that they needed to, and then the Eagles would fire back with the same amount of risk, where Tampa Bay didn't. They went for the field goal. and it bit him in the butt because Connor Barth wound up missing a field goal at one point, and they ended up having to go down after like a 68-yard pass from Evans, and they had to settle for another field goal again. They kept it close, but it was just like you can't keep just hitting field goals. Eventually, you're gonna have to get it in there. Beckham had a play where he just completely didn't get the pass. He dropped it, and then he went and punched the Gatorade cooler because he got mad. That was a fun highlight to watch over and over. But yeah, Eli Manning did fine. He got 2 touchdowns. He did what he's supposed to do. They had a 5-minute drive at the end that basically sealed it. Only gave him 23 seconds left to try to do something. That wasn't enough, obviously. But the biggest story I think for the Giants is JPP looked good. He got to the quarterback a couple times, but he didn't get to sack him. But he was impressive at times, especially once the tackle over there got more and more tired as they were playing more often. How long do you think it's going to take JPP to be back to himself? Do you think he does it at some point this season? We see more of the old JPP, or?
Yeah, it's going to take time. He didn't get a preseason. He didn't get a train camp. So, it's going to take a little bit to get him back going, but I think he's going to be a huge, huge key for the Giants' playoff run.
Well, if the Bucs had a more reliable defense, they could certainly be contending in this division, right?
I don't know about as far as like the division goes, because you have Carolina up there. Atlanta's slipping off a little bit, but they would definitely be part of the wild card hunt if they had a better defense. That's for sure. I like a lot of the weapons on offense, and Jameis Winston is playing better.
Well, speaking of those Falcons that you just talked about, they actually didn't play too badly on offense in this game. Matt Ryan had over 300 yards. Julio Jones had over 130 yards. Devontae Freeman was the one that the 49ers kind of hunkered down on, as he only got 12 yards rushing in this game. He did get a touchdown passing. He was kind of effective in the passing game, but they held him down running it. Blaine Gabbert wasn't great. He only had like 185 yards. He did throw 2 touchdowns to Garrett Selleck, brother of Brent Selleck. And he threw 1 interception that was bad, and then 1 interception that was basically not his fault at all. It was Jerome Simpson kept tipping it up in the air a bunch of times, and then eventually it just kind of landed in the Falcons' hands. And he was running it when he had to. He was decisive when he had to throw the ball. Not like Colin Kaepernick wandering around where he's going to throw and didn't know. And there's no Anquan Bolden in this game. It's Quentin Patton, and Quentin Patton looked pretty good. He had a 40 or 50 yard pass at one point. He was his most reliable receiver other than Selleck. And, he looked pretty good. So, at least, you have a third receiver there whenever Bolden comes back. And Torrey Smith did drop a couple passes, too, that didn't help Blaine Gabbert at all. And the one time you did Colin Kaepernick in this game because Gabbert had to go out for a play, incomplete pass. So that just kind of goes along with Mr. Kaepernick. And the big deal in this game, and I don't know if Dan Quinn's going to live this one down or not, but he only has 2 timeouts. And he knows that the defense hasn't really been able to stop the 49ers that much. There's been times where they did get 3 and outs and whatever, but Gabbert's been pretty efficient running and whatnot. So you're at the 2-yard line, 4th and goal. He decides to kick a field goal to make it within a point, knowing that you only got 2 timeouts, and if the 49ers get like a couple first downs, the game's over. Do you just go for it on 4th and goal at that point?
I think when
knowing that if you turn around, they're going to be backed at their own end zone.
Yeah, that's where I kind of disagree with his decision, is because if you don't get it, they're right up against the goal line. Maybe you cause them to panic a little bit and cause a turnover, or tell maybe a safety, and then you get the ball and whatever. And most likely, worst case scenario is they're able to run off a little bit of time, make you use your timeouts, and you get the ball at midfield. But I will say that kicking the field goal also isn't like, yes, it did not work out, but I don't think he should be completely criticized for it. I mean, it could have just the same worked out great where they kick the field goal, they stop the 49ers, they get the ball, get themselves in the field goal range, and they win this game. I do think they should have went for the risk, but I see where it's coming from. There was still about 3 minutes to go, so you still had the 2-minute warning. And just looking at the play-by-play, because this is not a game that I was able to really watch much of other than some highlights and stuff, the 49ers drives in the second half were a 5-play drive ending an interception, a 5-play drive for a punt, a 5-play drive for a punt, and a 7-play drive with an interception. So it wasn't like the second half was going that great for the 49ers, so I think he felt like they had started to figure them out. Unfortunately, they give up enough plays to let them run out the clock, and it backfires. But I think you gamble it being at the 2, but I don't think it was like this, oh my God, what are you doing moment.
Yeah, and I mean, no call was high for this game. Sean Drawn, who they just picked off the street, I forgot his first name, but Gaskins and Pierre Thomas, former Saint, combined for 90 yards rushing. If you throw in the 32 yards rushing for Blaine Gabbert, who he got a bunch of first downs doing that. He was actually one of the guys that got a 3rd and 4 rushing on that last drive, and then Gaskins, it was like a 2nd and 2 when he got it over the line that ended the game. But they combined for 122 yards rushing between the 4 of them. This is crazy. Just guys in the same level as Blaine Gabbert, and they all combined to just pull out a big win at home. So Gabbert's already been named the starter for the next game. So, I mean, what do you think this does for the 49ers, knowing that with Kaepernick, they've just looked so bad?
Well, I think this allows them to go, okay, we're done. The Colin Kaepernick era is now over. Obviously, they're not going to do anything this year, and no, Blaine Gabbert is not your quarterback of the future for San Francisco. But I think seeing the team kind of rally behind Gabbert, and you have a bunch of these no-name guys perform pretty well. I mean, you have Quentin Patton, your leading receiver, and Sean, like you said, Sean Drawn is your leading rusher. It's like, okay. So it's nice to see these guys kind of rally around, and now you know that you can start creating a nucleus from some of these guys, probably draft a quarterback in this year's draft, and move on. So I think it's a good sign for the 49ers down the road.
Well, good sign for the Jets is Ryan Fitzpatrick in, even with his tendon problems, and the Jets still win. What did you see here from your team?
It's a weird game. It was a game that I watched a lot of live, obviously. Was switching around between this and like the red zone, and would go into the other room and check out the Packers while the girlfriend was watching that and stuff. But watched a lot of this game, and to be honest, even though the Jets only won by 5 and they never were blowing out Jacksonville, I wasn't ever worried until like late in the fourth quarter when it was like you get that weird feeling in your stomach. It's like, God, I feel like the Jets have dominated this whole game, but they're only at 5. This is one of those like classic games where they're just going to lose, like because they could just never pull away. They just never could get away from Jacksonville, even though you're watching this game going, well, the Jets are the much better team right now. They're playing better. They're controlling the ball. Blake Bortles is making mistakes. The Jets have this in the bag. And then 5 minutes ago, the Jaguars have the ball down by 5, and you're just sweating bullets all of a sudden. So it was just really weird. My question to you, Sean, listen, Chris Ivory still doesn't look that great after his hamstring issue. He does get 2 touchdowns, which is great for fantasy owners, but he has 23 carries for 26 yards. And my question to you is a Chris Ivory at 50% really that much better than the combination of a Zach Stacy or a Bilal Powell or a Stephen Ridley who's supposed to be coming back? Or
yes. I mean,
really?
What has Zach Stacy been doing? Nothing.
Well, he hasn't had that much of a. I'm just saying. I mean, he doesn't get the workload. I'm just surprised. Zach Stacy got 1 carry in this game. Bilal Powell didn't get any. I think Bilal Powell's injured. It's one of those things. Even though I'm a Jets fan, I'm blanking on it right now. And Stephen Ridley is just coming back. But Zach Stacy got a carry when Chris Ivory is averaging 1 yard a carry. It was just, at some point you can try.
Right, you can try. But it's just like, it's one of these where this is your guy. I mean, this is the workhorse. We've seen him.
That's great, but he's your workhorse. But he's an injured workhorse.
To me, I think he still scored the touchdowns, right? I mean, he's giving you that. I mean, yeah, he only gets 26 yards on 23 carries or whatever, but this team just the threat of Chris Ivory being there makes a difference for that team than if you put a Zach Stacy or Bilal Powell or whatever. Then
Bilal Powell is one of the more underrated running backs I've ever seen. I don't think he would ever be the big number one, but he has good talent. And I would love to see what Stephen Ridley could do with this offensive line and this team. But it was just weird to me. It's like, listen, at some point, just rest Chris Ivory a little bit. Especially if you really feel like you can make a playoff run, which the Jets obviously think they do. Obviously as a wild card team. But you're going to have Chris Ivory come January. So it's like, just let the hamstring rest up a little bit. If Chris Ivory's 100%, yeah, absolutely. Give him the ball 30, 40 times. I don't care. I mean, because the guy is awesome. But right now, he just does not look right.
Maybe they should have given him less carries.
Yeah, he just looked hesitant, I think, I guess is the best way to put it.
Because he's scared to tear something.
Absolutely.
Worse.
So that's my thing. Other than that, listen, Eric Decker is your touchdown machine. I think it's 5 straight games now with a touchdown for Eric Decker. Brandon Marshall doesn't do a ton, but he didn't really need to. Blake Bortles, again, is he's a great fantasy quarterback, throwing almost 400 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he makes some terrible mistakes. He threw 2 interceptions. It should have been 5 because Darrelle Revis basically figured out the slant route, and he caused one to be tipped up and intercepted. He had one hit him between the 2 and the 4 and dropped it. But basically, anytime they ran a slant route against Darrelle Revis looked like the wide receiver. I mean, he bid on it every single time and completely dominate him. But again, Jacksonville stays in this game, partially due to the great combination of Allen Hurns and Allen Robinson, who combined for 11 catches for 243 yards and a touchdown. To me, it is the most underrated wide receiver duo we have in the league. I would probably put them possibly in the top 3 in the league. Sean, where would you put Hurns and Robinson when you think of wide receiver duos in the league right now?
I mean, it's I think you got to put Brown and Martavis Bryant up there.
I think they're one. I think Brown and
honestly,
anybody.
Crabtree and Cooper have been looking really good lately.
Yes, that is also true.
You got Sanders and Thomas over there with the Broncos.
I would put Hurns and Robinson over those 2.
I don't know if I can do that quite yet. 'Cause Sanders is a deep threat, and you got Thomas who can explode.
If you put Peyton Manning with Hurns and Robinson, they look way better. Like again, Blake Bortles is one of those guys as a fantasy owner I absolutely love, but like if I was a Jacksonville Jaguar fan, I would be freaking out because he just makes terrible mistakes. But they're both crazy deep threats. They have great hands. Robinson is just a beast. Maybe a Mike Evans, Vincent Jackson when they're healthy. That could be a tough duo. But it's just one of those things. I'm sure it's because they're in Jacksonville and nobody really cares, but it's just like they're not getting enough love, and I just wanted to give them a little bit. But I'm happy the Jets pull out the win. They're still the number 5 seed. They play Thursday night against the returning Rex Ryan, who is a douche in my eyes anymore. Listen, I thought they cut that Ike idiot that punched Geno Smith in the face.
And Polly is still there, and he's going to be rushing at maybe Geno Smith.
Not only that, they named the idiot a team captain for the game on Thursday.
Well,
how stupid.
That's Rex Ryan.
Yeah, and I am very excited to see Rex Ryan come back into New York and get his dirty foot stuck in his mouth. And this is from a guy that likes Rex Ryan. I like Rex Ryan, but that was a douchebag move, sir. So I don't like
it. Douchebag move, but hey, I mean, I know it's only the Dolphins, and this game wasn't totally out of hand or anything, but we gotta talk about this Buffalo Bills and Dolphins game because your team is playing them on Thursday night. We'll be doing the post game of that game. We'll be watching it closely. Obviously, you'll be watching it closely, but this is the second of the two games with Dolphins and Buffalo. Obviously, Buffalo went and spanked the Dolphins at home, so Miami had a better shot with a different coach to go in here. And this was really a game of opportunities missed and made here because both QBs actually played pretty well. Tannehill had over 300 yards. Tyrod Taylor got held to 181 yards, and he threw the long bomb to Sammy Watkins. He was still doing his thing running, though. Actually, the Miami defense gave up 266 yards to LaShawn McCoy, Carlos Williams, and then 44 to Tyrod Taylor. Both Williams and McCoy got over 100 yards, even though LaShawn McCoy is injured again. My God, that guy just cannot stay healthy. But seriously, here's moments from Miami here. They were second and goal after about like 2 different penalties on the same drive in like around the same area that gave them first downs. There were 7 total penalties that were first downs. This is not even counting the first downs that Miami got on their own, which are quite a few. 7 of them were first downs because of Buffalo penalties. This team still hasn't figured out how to not have stupid penalties. 13 for 94 in this game. Rex Ryan, I don't know what the hell you're doing, but you're obviously not getting through to your team. They are just not listening to you on that front. But okay, they had second and goal. Time went out in the first half, or they could have made that game 19 to 14 before we got to the end of the half. Then later, the game's still in play at this point, and Ndamukong Suh has a big sack on Tyrod Taylor, and I have no idea why Dan Campbell elects. Now I get it's probably field position at that point, but he elects to accept the penalty to make it 3rd and 14. Well, guess what? Deep pass, Watkins touchdown. If he would have just said 4th and 4, punt, or make a long field goal, much better. Because the game is only 26 to 14 at that point. Then you make it 33 to 14, much of a bigger deal. So, and there's also a time where Tannehill completes a 4th and 7 to Landry, and the holding on the offense calls it back. So, as I said, Landry looked really good in this game, getting a lot of the passes from Tannehill. Lamar Miller didn't have a big game running the ball. He was pretty good on screens, and he got the 2 touchdowns, 2 short yardage touchdowns for the Dolphins there. Still, this is still the Dolphins. They're still with do they stand a chance at all? 0-4 in the division, and they still got some big games.
No, listen, the honeymoon with Dan Campbell is over. I know we were all riding high with them when they completely destroyed Tennessee and Houston as maybe a resurgence of what we thought Miami was supposed to be. Yes, New England's doing that to everyone, so you can't really put that on them. But to me, the way they played in this game against Buffalo, who seemed to be, there were two answers that Buffalo had on offense. It was hand the ball off or throw it to Sammy Watkins. That's all you had to stop. Stop the running game and put 5 people on Sammy Watkins. That's all you had to do. And they
couldn't totally do that because Tyrod Taylor was also running the ball.
Well, you stop him too. But listen, Tyrod Taylor completed 11 passes on 12 attempts. 8 of them went to Sammy Watkins for 168 yards. The other 3 receptions were a total of 13 yards.
Yep.
Put 2-3 people on Sammy Watkins because he wasn't looking anywhere else. He threw 12 passes. Only 4 of them were not to a man named Sammy Watkins. But Sammy Watkins caught all 8 passes that were thrown in his direction. Just put bodies on him. So, no, listen, Miami, I'm sorry, your season's done. You go to Philadelphia next week, and then Dallas, and then at the Jets. And you still got the Giants and the Colts and the Patriots still on the schedule. It's
nasty schedule.
It's time to move on. And I'm disappointed.
Are you worried about the Bills, though, coming in on Thursday night?
Of course. It's a division game, so you're always worried about that. And it's Rex Ryan coming back, and you know that he has circled this on his calendar, and he's going to pull out some bag of tricks and stuff. However, again, it's Thursday night, home team, so I'm glad it's in New York. And listen, I just said Buffalo is very much basically 2-dimensional, and LaShawn McCoy's hurt, though he says he should be ready to go Thursday. The Jets have one of the best rush defenses in the league, and a guy named Darrelle Revis. So welcome to Revis Island, Sammy Watkins, and I'm sure they're going to have safety help over the top. They're not just going to let him go one-on-one the whole time. So I don't see Buffalo doing anything near this on Thursday, and then it's just up to Fitzpatrick and the Jets offense to control the ball and control the clock. So as a Jets fan, I'm not worried about this game at all that much, other than it's the division game and that kind of stuff. But I think the Jets will win that game.
Well, let's briefly go over this Patriots-Redskins game. I mean, it was really... No, the Patriots had 14 points, for the Redskins only had they'd run one play from scrimmage.
I just love how patriot it was to be. You're playing the stupid Washington Redskins, and you go down in 6 minutes and just dominate, and you score a touchdown, and you're like, screw it, onside kick. Why not? Just
Exactly.
That's so patriot-like. That's just, and I mean, obviously a Jets fan, I don't like the Patriots, but I respect the hell out of these guys, especially Bill Belichick. I really do think he is a football genius. I mean, all respect goes to Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, but that is so patriot-like, and I loved it.
Something that didn't help the Redskins at all, those 7 drops from their receivers, which you can't have that when you're playing the Patriots. I mean, it's just terrible. Tom Brady, almost 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. Blunt has 129 yards rushing. I mean, the Redskins did hold the Patriots to their lowest scoring of the season, but man, this just doesn't matter.
I honestly think it's because the Patriots just didn't care after a while. They
also lost Deion Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, that changes things up a little bit, but it was just, they weren't really trying to go crazy on offense. It just seemed like, let's just control the ball, let's have long drives. If we get a touchdown or not, who cares? We're not losing this game.
That being said, how big of a loss is Deion Lewis?
It's big, and it's surprising to say, because this guy's come out of nowhere, and Brandon Bolden comes out and takes a spot pretty well, but it is, especially as far as the passing game goes, because I think LeGarrette Blount is their guy when it comes to running the ball. But they'll put Lewis back there, and he'll come out of the backfield and catch passes and find ways to find holes. Now, whether they use Brandon Bolden or James White to be that replacement for him, it'll be interesting to see. But it's absolutely a big loss. Deion Lewis has been one of those really interesting weapons that are very difficult to stop. He is their new Danny Woodhead.
Basically, yeah. He's been huge for them. I mean, Brandon Bolden went and scored a touchdown,
which again is just really just sick to say, isn't it? Where the Patriots are like, we'll get rid of this Woodhead guy that nobody cared about before Woodhead came to the Patriots. He comes to the Patriots and becomes a huge key. They leave and they're like, okay, we'll bring in a new one, and he's even better.
Yeah, Welker leaves. Oh, we got Julian Evan. No big deal.
Yeah, it's like Wes Welker, who? Yeah. Whatever. Aaron Hernandez, who? They don't care. They'll just replace him with Scott Chandler. I mean, he's not what Aaron Hernandez was, but he's fine. And it's just, it's gross what New England can do.
And they have Ben Watson at one point, too.
Yeah, Jesus.
So, this is amazing what they could do. I mean, even Hamalu Louie, whatever, they had him. So
I fucking love that name. It's my favorite football name. And he scored another touchdown.
Right, and he scored another. I mean, the Patriots have been doing this to everybody, so Redskins shouldn't be too down on themselves for this.
Listen, yes, I don't think the Patriots were out for as much blood other than that onside kick. But you do hold them to 27 points. And listen, when you have all those drops against a team like the Patriots, you're not going to win. So work on the dropping and just keep doing what you're doing. And I think I'm right there with you, where it's like it's the Patriots. What are you going to do?
Well, the Saints got themselves involved in another big shootout game with the Titans. You were watching this one. What happened here? The Titans ended up winning in overtime.
I don't want to go as far out and say Mario. I did joke that he's the luckiest person on the face of the earth, but he does play a great game. 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, 28-39, 371. He had a great game. But I have never seen anyone catch 3 tipped passes like Delaney Walker did. It was the ball would get tipped up and he'd just catch it. That one crazy play that I'm sure everyone has now seen where Mariota throws a terrible pass off his back foot, overthrows Walker, and 2 Saints guys are right there to intercept it. They run into each other trying to intercept the ball. The ball comes up. Walker catches it and runs it for a touchdown.
That was ridiculous.
That's how this game was. Drew Brees is still awesome. He goes out there and he ends up with, he threw 7 touchdowns in the last game, and he throws 2 in the first quarter of this game, so he was just still red hot. They do kind of sizzle off in the second half, though, which is a little worrisome, I guess, if you're a Saints fan. Obviously, the loss is more important, but the offense has been the reason why you're kind of getting this resurgent, and it just wasn't there in the second half. I just think their timing was off. I don't really think it was much more of like the Titans had figured them out or anything. Listen, when you're throwing the ball as much as Drew Brees is, at times it's just not going to be there. You're not going to be able to continue that kind of momentum that much. Both teams missed field goals right near the end of the game with big chances late. And then, Tennessee gets the plays when they need, and they win the coin toss and go right down and score the touchdown and get a huge victory for them, and really dampers playoff chances for New Orleans. So, Sean, are they still playoff contenders? That NFC is confusing enough. Are they still in it?
I think they are. I think this is one of those times where you're going to lose a game like this. They were lucky to win. Had they lost the game against the Giants and this one, I think you're out. But with the Falcons kind of faltering, I think they're going to continue to falter a bit. I just don't see one of the Packers or Vikings are. They might get that eventually. Just get that 5th or get the 6th. The Vikings can wind up usurping the Falcons, and then you have that one. Seed that you're still playing for, and I think the Saints are still sort of in it because they already beat the Falcons once, so they can beat them again. They got the tiebreaker there. They got the game against the season at the end of the season against the Panthers.
Well, here
they got a lot to play for, not just in the division, but I think if they can keep winning if they can get a little run, they'll be okay.
Here, I'll play a little game with you, just to kind of look at it. We're halfway through the season. Some teams have played 9. Either Minnesota or Green Bay are going to win the division. We'll say the other team wins the first wild card. I think that's okay to say right now. Obviously, we'll say Arizona wins the NFC West, and then somebody in the East is winning. Okay, so you have one spot left open for the NFC playoffs. So just the teams that are ahead of the Saints right now, I just want you to say, are they better than them or not? So you have the Philadelphia Eagles. Who's better?
I think the Eagles are better defensively.
Seattle Seahawks.
Oh, Seattle, yeah.
St. Louis Rams.
Oh, Rams are better defensively. I still think I kind of trust Eli more in a situation where if it's one game.
So see, other than one of the Giants or Eagles, the Saints have to pass all of those teams. And I'm kind of with you where I think all of those teams are better than the Saints right now. So, yes, mathematically they are still a playoff contender, but and Atlanta too is still ahead of them by 2 games. But I'm with you. I don't like the direction that team is going right now.
That sucks because we picked the Falcons to win the division.
Yeah, absolutely. And we looked really smart for about.
Yeah, for part of the season at least.
Yeah. So I mean, to kind of answer the question, they're in it statistically, but I don't think they're much of a playoff contender.
Yeah, I mean, they have to have a lot of things fall right for them.
Yes.
And that doesn't always happen for you. So, let's get on to two couple of really good games. Ben Roethlisberger is out again. Thankfully, he's not for a long time. But they do get the Browns and then a bye week, so I guess Big Ben picked the right time, even though it's not his fault. But, man, this was a crazy game.
Yeah, so just quick side story. I know people don't care about fantasy stories and stuff, but it's just to kind of show you how lucky I am in this situation. I had Big Ben. He goes down with his first injury, and my team is pretty good in this league. So I start really shopping to get a good quarterback. I end up trading, I think this is week 3 or 4 when this happens. I trade Larry Fitzgerald when he was red hot and Danny Woodhead and got Andrew Luck. Well, then Andrew Luck gets hurt, so I've been able to use him for one game, but that's beside the point. So I get Big Ben back. So then I'm trying to shop Andrew Luck, and Le'Veon Bell goes down for the Steelers last week. And I'm in talks with the guy who's in second to last place in our league. And in our league, every week the waivers reset. So the team that's in last place gets the first pick. And the team in last place is completely out of it. They were 1-7. So I'm not even thinking about them. So I get a hold of the guy who's in second to last place. And I go, hey, are you going to pick up D'Angelo Williams? And he goes, yeah, that's my plan. I go, well, if you do get him, I will give you Andrew Luck. And he went, sure, that's great. So I was all set to trade Andrew Luck for D'Angelo Williams. And the guy who is completely out of it ends up picking him up, which I still would have loved to have D'Angelo Williams. But I kind of feel lucky now that we have Big Ben down again to have Andrew Luck to fall on. It's a good thing to have in a 14-team league. But yeah, Big Ben goes down, which is very disappointing, especially for the Steelers. Like you said, it probably will only hinder them for one game, and it is Cleveland. So maybe not that big of a deal. But D'Angelo Williams goes ridiculous, 27 carries, 170 yards, 2 touchdowns. Somebody who goes even more crazy is an Antonio Brown who just was loving Big Ben coming back. 17 carries, 284 yards. Surprisingly, does not find the end zone, but Jesse James finds the end zone. So that's a thing.
He also got 100 yards rushing, too, Antonio Brown. Just insane.
They had 22 yards rushing.
Oh, I thought he had over 100 yards rushing.
No.
Deal about that for some reason. Oh, okay.
It wouldn't have surprised me if he did. I mean, he was doing everything. On the other side of the ball, the Oakland Raiders are very, very, very good. Derek Carr with 4 more touchdowns. Latavius Murray looked unstoppable until he got stopped with a concussion, and that one looked pretty bad too. Welcome back, Michael Crabtree. Holy crap. 7 catches, 108 yards, 2 touchdowns. Amari Cooper, 7 catches, 88 yards and a touchdown. That, like you said, is another one of those wide receiver duos that you could consider being one of the best in the league. So that's my first question to you is what are your thoughts on this resurgence of Michael Crabtree?
Well, I think Derek Carr has a lot to do with that. I think Amari Cooper has a lot to do with that. People are having to pay attention a lot to Amari Cooper so much that Michael Crabtree's getting open. And he's finding ways to get the ball. So, I mean, I think if he was the lead receiver, he wouldn't be doing that. Honestly.
Yeah, it's possible. But, I mean, sometimes that's all you need. It's kind of like with the Jets with Eric Decker. You put Brandon Marshall there, and Eric Decker becomes just that much better of a player. Because he's a great player. I mean, he's a great number 2, but he's just not quite good enough to be a number 1.
I feel like Eric Decker at some points, if he had a better quarterback, he could be. I just don't see that with Michael Crabtree.
Yeah, I can understand. But this game goes back and forth. It looks like Pittsburgh's about to put it away. Then Big Ben goes down, and Oakland, right as Oakland is starting to get things rolling again. The The one thing I will say, the special teams in this game were terrible. We saw a blocked punt. There was a kickoff that goes out of bounds, which you just do not see in the NFL. Both teams muffed a punt. Antonio Brown was one of those for the Steelers. So just the special teams were rough. But that was the only thing you could say that was rough. It was just probably the funnest game I watched this week. Both offenses going nuts. Just a great back and forth of just great talent and huge playoff inclination. So now you have Steelers as your 6th seed so far, halfway through the year. The Raiders dropped to 8th, but are only a half game out. So they're both right there in the playoff hunt. So with Big Ben out, say Big Ben misses 3 or 4 games, are you worried about the Steelers, or do you think he comes out in a wheelchair, or what do you think?
Well, Big Ben would come out in a wheelchair if he could.
He has an arm. I don't think he needs to step into any throws. He could just sit there and throw it.
Yeah, but that would be great to see, certainly. But I think it just it sucks because he was just starting to look more like himself, and then he gets hurt again. I think he can be back. He'll be okay. We saw Landry Jones when he had a full game. He didn't look that great. And the Browns defense, though, they can't stop the run. And D'Angelo Williams had one heck of a game against the Raiders. I can't imagine what he's going to do against the Browns. And Antonio Brown's going to be tough to stop. This means Bartavius Bryant's going to be more involved because Landry Jones seems to like him a bit more. I just don't see the Browns stopping him. If he can get good before the bye week, I think the Steelers will be okay.
Yeah, and they need him after the bye week because they go to Seattle and then they get Indianapolis and then go to Cincinnati and then get Denver. So that 4-game stretch,
what a schedule!
They need him back 100% after that bye week. So honestly, I guess the best way to put it, I mean, it looks like he's going to miss next week anyways. But even if he was a questionable going into Sunday, sit him. Just take the week off against Cleveland, get your bye week, and get ready for that huge 4-game stretch. And then on top of that, I mean, just to finish their schedule, it's 2 lesser teams, but it's at Baltimore and at Cleveland. So 2 divisional matchups on the road, which is never easy either.
Yeah, a rough one. And speaking of a rough one, it was a rough one for the Broncos for quite a while in that the 425, game of the week for CBS with the Broncos and Colts. Peyton Manning going into Indianapolis, where he used to call home for so many years, down 17-0 at one point. They willed him back, and some other things happened though here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing that I took most out of this is Andrew Luck looked a bit healthier in this game. I mean, he was throwing the ball a bit better. And I kind of have a little bit of higher hopes now for the Colts. I mean, our big thing was they can't beat anyone outside of the division. Well, they just beat an undefeated team at home and looked really good in the first half to do so. Frank Gore continues to look like a solid addition, giving them that running game that they've desperately needed. T.Y. Hilton goes from I'm not practicing, I'm not practicing, I'm probably not going to play to best receiver on the field for the Colts.
I felt so bad. I told somebody not to start T.Y. Hilton at all.
Well, you didn't tell me, but I told myself. I mean, I was still able to win that league, but I was one of those that benched T.Y. Hilton, which is you kind of had to. It was a late afternoon game, and you didn't have a lot of options. But speaking of options, Griff Whalen, hello, 5 catches, 73 yards out of nowhere. I've never heard of this kid. I'm curious to see if it was just a game plan situation in this, and that Moncrief was too covered, or if this is something new. It'll be interesting to see. But Sean, I'll just ask you right off the bat: are the Colts back on track here?
It seems like they are. They were really close to beating Carolina on Monday night last week. They came in at home, obviously, and beat the Broncos. And the defense did their part, too, causing Denver to get, the interception on Manning. And then, of course, Akeem to lead with his stupid crap. So, that was just dumb. Absolutely, positively dumb. How do you not give your quarterback a chance to possibly win you the game when you're not doing your part? and then you go and stick your fingers in somebody's eye. Come on, I mean, yeah, you know what? Dwayne Allen pulled a WWE move and sold it for all it was worth. But hell, I don't blame the guy. Why not? Just you're trying to win the game. Do whatever you can.
Yeah, just terrible in it. And listen, on the Denver side, so much for that running game in Denver. Indianapolis is historically terrible against the run, and they just kind of gave up on C.J. Anderson. And Ronnie Hillman did absolutely nothing. 7 carries for 1 yard. So just a rough day all around for the running game. So it was all on the arm of Peyton Manning, who does throw 2 interceptions, 1 late critical. But I felt like he was throwing the ball better than what I've seen this year. Not as many ducks. I mean, his touchdown pass to Emmanuel Sanders was a thing of beauty. It kind of reminded you of the Peyton Manning of old. But they don't get the job done. Peyton Manning ends up 2 yards shy of the all-time record for most passing yards because he does throw that interception on the late drive. And then the Colts do a great job of running the clock, which is helped by those 2 bad penalties. One on a field goal attempt, which would have put them up 6 with like 15 seconds to go or something. And they get called defensive holding on a field goal try. I've never heard of that before, but it happens. They get the first down, they kneel the ball, and that was it. But just a goofy question for you. Listen, again, Peyton Manning, 2 yards shy. What are the odds to you that the first play of scrimmage for Denver next week at home is going to be a passing play?
90%.
I would go 99.9. I think they want to get out there, first play, get the record, get the celebration over with, and get on with it. I think they just get the big record for Peyton Manning and then focus on Kansas City. But yeah, to be only 2 yards shy and have to go through it. And also, they go out and get Vernon Davis, and Owen Daniels goes nuts, of all things, because we all saw that coming, right? 6 catches, 102 yards, and a touchdown for Denver. I'm curious if a lot of people decided to start Vernon Davis this week just because. I don't even know if he even saw the field, but yeah, so it was good on them. I'm not worried about Denver as far as like winning their division. Tough game on the road against a resurgent team, and they played pretty well. Just dumb mistakes that they need to clean up.
Yeah, exactly. But that does it for our NFL Week 9 recap. Again, we'll have our show previewing Week 10 over there on Friday morning for you. Hopefully we'll have Gary back and we'll be able to keep things going as we usually do. But let's get into some crazy stuff at college football. Some big upsets happened. And then also Arkansas for the second straight week in a row. Almost like they have a heart attack. So, just lots of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just kind of run down it real quick. Some of the smaller things, I guess. Navy upsets number 13 Memphis out of nowhere, gives them their first loss of the year. Nebraska goes out and upsets Michigan State on a late touchdown pass, which was crazy to me. I thought Michigan State could definitely be a contender as far as the playoffs go. Alabama goes out and just beats down LSU, completely stopping Leonard Fournette. He only has 19 carries for 31 yards. He does find the end zone once, but that is nothing compared to what he's been doing all year. Clemson looked awesome in the second half against Florida State to get the win there. I think they are, to me, the number one team in the country. And then we'll kind of go to near your old home there, Sean, and you were kind of joking about how, oh my God, TCU is only ranked 8th. What a joke. How is Oklahoma State only ranked 14th? They're undefeated, and they go out and completely destroy TCU. Like, it didn't even look close. Like, TCU went out and scored a bunch of points in the fourth quarter to make it look like less of a blowout. So how underrated is Oklahoma State?
Yeah, it's just really underrated at this point. I mean, but it's also a conference opponent, so they know each other better than if they played a non-conference team or whatever. It's just, this is those games that it was going to be rough for TCU to play. I mean, you weren't expecting Oklahoma State to be this good, and just wow, Oklahoma State came in and just beat them.
And then the game you had kind of mentioned, Arkansas. Oh, gee, just a crazy way to end that game. What was it? 4th and 25?
Yeah.
In overtime, and you're down by 7, and you throw it to your tight end, who looks like he's going to get tackled 11 yards short, and he throws it behind his head, and the ball bounces straight up into the running back's hands. And I watched a sports science thing about it today, where it was like a 30-1 chance that ball bounces in anywhere catchable for the running back, let alone a straight 90-degree bounce. And then he gets some blockers, gets the first down. They go down, score the touchdown, decide to go for 2, get stopped, but the quarterback gets pulled by his face mask. So they get to try again and end up scoring on their second attempt at the 2-point conversion and win the game. So, Sean, do you have any hair left?
I was at work, luckily, or I would have had no hair left.
I remember I was at work when this game was going on and had switched to it because it was in overtime. I was on break at the time, so I was able to mess around with the TV in our break room. And I was watching it and kind of just checking my phone and checking where our standings were, I think, at the time for our pick'ems and stuff. And saw 4th and 25. I'm kind of, okay, well, this game's over. And saw the guy kind of get stopped. So I looked down at my phone, and all of a sudden he throws it behind him and see the running back start running. I don't know if my mouth has ever been as wide open as it was as he was getting the first down. It's just completely crazy. But, I mean, that's college football, and that's why I love it. You always have stuff like this that is just completely insane and something new every week. But then on a little heavier side, a more serious note, you had the Missouri players say they would never play again while President Tim Wolf was part of Missouri. I guess there's a ton of racial tension there. There was a guy that was doing a huge hunger strike, and the football players backed him. And all the black players said, listen, we're not going to play for this team while he's here. The coach completely backed him up. So did most of the other players. It was a great sign of unity, and he resigned. So, I mean, good on them to stick up for what they believe in, and for the coach and some of these actual adults that are part of that university to stick up for their players and be the family that a lot of other colleges claim to be. So it was great to see that, listen, they're not putting up with this kind of stuff anymore. And no matter what position you're in, no matter what, I mean, you can't act like this. You can't say some of the things that he's been claimed to say. So, I mean, I was glad to see that it didn't stretch out for a long time. I'm glad it doesn't look like they're going to miss any games now that he's gone and they can play BYU and all that. So I love the sign of unity from that team and from the coaching staff and stuff. So I was well done on them.
Yeah, it is a good sign to see, definitely. So, anything else on the...
Not on the college front.
All right, so let me get to Gary's fantasy sleepers here. He's not here, but he still gave us these. He says Brandon Bolden for New England. He's a guy that was around for them last year. Obviously, he should, and we saw him score the touchdown. He should take a lot of what Dion Lewis was doing and do that. You know, maybe not as great as Lewis, but do it pretty well. You know, as Gary notes here, he doesn't have a huge history with guys like Bolden, Lewis, Kevin Falk, going all the way back to that. Griff Whalen that Randy mentioned, Gary has that as his number 2 guy that you need to look out for. He's a deep sleeper, obviously, but just keep your eye on him. It's a solid option for Luck when, you know, he can't find any other receivers. You know, Moncrief and Hilton are kind of covered. I mean, if you're in one of those small leagues where you can pick up talent all the time, you know, 8 or 10 team or 12 team, probably not a guy. But if you're in a 14 team, 16 or higher, definitely a guy you might need to look up and just have him there in case something happens. Seth Roberts, another guy. I kind of mentioned him, you know, I think way back that he was a guy that to look out for. He's getting more targets from Carr, and he could be a great stats player. You never know. So, especially if maybe Crabtree or Cooper go down. Devontae Adams, he's seen a resurgence a little bit with Aaron Rodgers. It seemed like, James Jones was going to be his guy, but it looks like Rodgers and Adams have a better chemistry right now. Gary has him as a low wide receiver 2 or high wide receiver 3 that you could use if you're looking for a receiver. And Landry Jones, obviously, again, going to come up as a QB for Pittsburgh if you need one right now, with still 5 weeks going around. So,
That's it.
thank you. I apologize to you guys had to hear that, but it is what it is. So there's your fantasy sleepers. Let's get to these power rankings. Gary has New England at number 1, Cincinnati number 2, Carolina 3, Denver at 4, and Green Bay at 5. So I don't know that he messed with his. Maybe he forgot to do that before he had to go. Or maybe he feels like they're still there. You and I changed ours quite a bit. I took the Packers out of mine. I put your Jets at 4 for continuing to find ways to win. And the same thing with the Vikings as they continue to find ways to win. But I put the Panthers above the Bengals because they have just been proven that they are legit. Even though I think ESPN has the Bengals as a better chance to be undefeated than the Panthers. And, of course, the Patriots. They just keep doing their thing. What do you got, Randy?
Yeah, with me, I still give Green Bay a lot of credit. You lose to Denver and Carolina, both on the road. They're both undefeated at the time. But I do like Minnesota at 5. I'm with you there. I am worried about the Teddy Bridgewater injury, but I really think they're a complete team. That defense is solid. You have Adrian Peterson in the background, or in the backfield. Some good wide receivers there, and as long as Teddy Bridgewater, is healthy, they're great. And also, there's something I forgot to mention during that game. Didn't even write the note down, but it just kind of hit me. I have never seen a young quarterback do the hard count like Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, there was one drive where I think there was like 5 straight whistles because there was like 3 offsides and 2 false starts. He was making everyone jump with his hard count. It was hilarious to see, and he's really good at that. I do have the Packers at number 4. Again, to lose to 2 really good teams on the road, I'm not going to dock you that much. I do think they are one of the top Super Bowl contenders in the NFC. Number 3 to me, Cincinnati took care of business against Cleveland on Thursday. Still undefeated, still looking like a great team. To me, number 2, I said it before, I'm all in with Carolina right now. They're just great. I'm falling in love with this team. I like Cam Newton and what he's doing, making these non-name receivers turn into something. Greg Olsen is great. Jonathan Stewart's getting the job done. And that defense, I think, is very underrated. And to me, I'm with you guys. I mean, until the Patriots lose a game, I don't think that they are in any risk of dropping in our power rankings. They're just too good. Agreed.
Well, let's get to our player of the week. Again, this is your first week listening. Week 1, we had Carlos Hyde. Week 2, Tom Brady. Week 3, A.J. Green. Week 4, Devontae Freeman. Week 5, Eli Manning. Week 6, DeAndre Hopkins. Week 7, Kirk Cousins. And Week 8, last week, was Drew Brees. So, what are our picks this week? Gary has a very interesting one in D'Angelo Williams, 170 rush yards, 55 receiving yards, 2 rush TDs. He was a large part of their offense. I have Antonio Brown, the other part, the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. And Randy, who do you have?
I love Cam Newton. That's who I'm going with. Listen, he only threw 50%, but again, he's throwing to nobodies. He's handing the ball off to a big fat dude. He threw it for almost 300 yards. He throws for 3 touchdowns. He rushes for almost another 60 and gets a touchdown. It's just, he is that team. He is that offense, and I love the guy. What can I say?
I would agree with you. This is a rough one because we had some really good performances this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, to me, I love Cam, but I think I'm biased now. D'Angelo Williams has a great game, gets a couple touchdowns. But to me, I kind of go with you, Sean, as Antonio Brown. Anytime you catch 284 yards and you get the big catch near the end of the game to set your team up for the game-winning field goal, not only do you just destroy it fantasy-wise, but you get the big play for your team. I think it's Antonio Brown.
All right, well, 2-1. Antonio Brown is going to win it this week. So week 9, Antonio Brown, you are our player of the week. Well, that does it for our week 9 NFL recap show. Hopefully you enjoyed it. We will be back on Friday morning with looking at week 10 and also looking at that Thursday night game that Randy will be.
We've already hit double digits. How gross.
Yep, already hit those double digits. And yeah, that's going to be just ever getting closer to the end of the season. So we are there. Of course, you can, if you've liked this show, you can hit subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever else. There are podcasts, I can assure you, we're there. Podbean, as part of the Last Word Radio, Spreaker, of course, where we do this live. TuneIn, Player FM, Blueberry, and Downcast, anywhere where you can find a podcast. I'm pretty sure this or the WCM Network is there, which also includes our wrestling podcast, which is our flagship podcast. As long as nothing crazy happens after I get off work, we should be having a New Japan Power Struggle 2015 review with myself, Paul, and Tom Reese should be joining us for that too. As Gary hopefully will be okay. I mean, hopefully his daughter will be okay, but I don't think he's going to have time to watch that show. And then of course we'll be there on Friday morning with another big normal episode 169 of Rest of the Max podcast, and of course Squad Multiplayer Live, which is also the official Game Zone podcast of FullOnMania.com. We just did our newest episode today after being off for a couple weeks because we just couldn't come up with time to figure it out. I kept having problems with work and getting out late and stuff happening and whatever. So we finally got to talk about BlizzCon, all the stuff that happened there, and quite a few other things that have been going on. And then, Fallout 4 coming out.
Yes.
Well, everybody probably did the midnight thing, but if you didn't, it comes out today. So everybody's excited for that. I know you're excited. You're waiting for that to come in the mail.
Yep, my Pip-Boy it's on its way. It's slowly working its way.
I'm gonna read to that red box and see if I like it first. I wanna. GameStop kept bothering me because I have a pre-approval for that credit card, and I haven't had a credit card in like 4 years. So I said, you know what? I go to GameStop pretty often. It's a way I can use it to get a game, and then every couple months or so after I pay it off, and I don't have to have the money right up front like that. So I didn't get. I probably could have went ahead and got Fallout or Battlefront or Black Ops 3 or something like that, but Redbox has both Black Ops 3 and Fallout, so I wanted to just rent those first before I ever thought about that. So I got Yokai Watch instead, so I've been playing that. It's a pretty fun game. Yeah, and I know you've got your podcast that's rolling along here.
Yeah.
All about it.
Yeah, if you like older video games or indie video games or just video games in general, my buddy Wes and I are on a journey to go through a bunch of video games that have just kind of passed us by at times due to busy schedules or just the lack of finishing games. So definitely check out backlogbusting.com, where we have a podcast every 2 weeks where we play through a couple video games and just kind of discuss them. And that's just kind of what we do. Our podcast tomorrow we'll be talking about Luigi's Mansion, Limbo, and what else did we do? Crap. I'm already moving on to this next week in my head, so I'm blanking on what we just did. Crap. Oh, well, how can I forget? Donkey Kong Country. Duh.
Yeah.
I was trying to forget because of all the cuss words I was saying at Donkey Kong because it wasn't. My thumbs weren't wanting me to do what I wanted.
Pretty slow.
Yeah, he's a bastard. I love Diddy better. Diddy's the man. But anyway, so we're going to talk about those 3 games on the podcast that will come out probably later tomorrow. Also, check out our YouTube channel. We have Mario Maker Mondays. Our latest episode just came out last week. And I promise, if you start watching, next week's episode is going to be our best one yet. That's all I'm going to say. The end of next week's episode is the best thing on the internet ever.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
But we're also going to add some more stuff on that. As Sean said, I'm excited for Fallout. I think we're going to start doing Fallout Let's Plays on Fridays because, Mario Maker Mondays, so why not Fallout for Fridays? So we're probably going to start doing that. Also, check us out on Twitch at, I think it's Backlog Busting is what he has under. If not, check out our Facebook for all the information. I plan on streaming a little bit of the Lord of the Rings game, Shadow of Mordor, tomorrow as I start my run-through of that game. And so I probably will do that about 3 p.m. Eastern Time is when I'll get that started, so check that out.
All right. Well, looks like things are coming up on the horizon for us to do. Plenty of it. Well, until Friday morning, we'll see you later.